Hi everybody, welcome to Cotto Verde. My name's Annette, and if you're new to my channel, welcome, but thank you so much also to all the new subscribers I've had recently. I can't tell you how happy it makes me that people are finding my channel useful. Anyway, I have been absent for a little while. I've had a really extended holiday and I feel incredibly lucky to have had that holiday. It's been 5 weeks and actually 6 weeks since I've done anything in the garden, but the consequence of that is that my garden is a disaster. If you grow dahlias, then you know that they need deadheading in order to keep flowering, and the same goes for a lot of the annuals and perennials. And so I've come back to a garden that is, well, basically sodden but also dying, so everything has gone over and there's very little in flower. So what I'm going to do today is cut the flowers that I want to bring indoors, because I'm going to be lifting my dahlias this week and I will film that, so do stay tuned if you'd like to see how I lift my dahlias and store them. But I'm going to cut the flowers today, and I'm also going to be cutting flowers to dry them so that I can use them over the coming months for decorations inside and things like that. And I'm also going to be pruning my lavender, and I wouldn't normally prune my lavender at this time of year. It is currently the end of October. I'd normally have done it sort of the end of August, but as I said, we've been away for a really long time, so I didn't get that done. But I saw that Monty Don on Gardener's World pruned his lavender last week, and so I am going to do mine now as well, and that will tidy up a little bit of the patio bed that is looking a complete mess. Anyway, let me just show you what's in bloom at the moment in my garden, and then let's cut some flowers together and prune some lavender and see what other little jobs we can get done. I have to say I am feeling a huge sense of overwhelm, which is kind of the reason that I didn't do any gardening last week, because I was getting over jet lag, but also it feels like we have a large garden and it feels like this huge task to suddenly come back and have to button everything down for the winter. But also I think I'm just a bit disappointed about what's happened in the garden. I knew it was going to happen. I don't know what I was expecting, that, you know, some miraculous elves would come and deadhead the flowers for me every day. And in all honesty, a friend did do some deadheading for me, but that's not the same as deadheading every day. And we've had storms and rain, and this is kind of one of the first decent days we've had since I've been back. So let's see what we can get done today. Let's get cracking. So the first thing that I'm going to cut today are these gorgeous white straw flowers, and these seem to have survived the lack of deadheading better than almost anything else in the garden. So I'm just going to cut them for now, and then I will deal with all the foliage and stuff like that. Once I've cut everything, I'll just strip everything off and show you how I hang them up to dry them. And there isn't much rhyme or reason to how I'm cutting these today, because they're all going over anyway, and we're about to get another storm on Thursday. So I do need to cut what I want to save now, so that they don't go to waste. In previous videos, I've mentioned that this particular dahlia here, called Bright Eyes, is one of my favourite dahlias because it just keeps flowering no matter whether you deadhead it at all. And of course, it's one of the dahlias that is still in flower, even though nobody has deadheaded it in the last 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks even, and it's still flowering. And most of my other dahlias are really, you know, struggling and sodden and damp. It's got a lot, I mean, so many, you know, heads to deadhead here. I'm definitely not deadheading it today. As I said, I'm going to lift all the dahlias, but, you know, look at this for an example of something that doesn't need deadheading. It will just keep flowering. This is actually 2 plants here, and I think there might be a third at the back. And in fact, I can still see bees enjoying them. This was one of my favourite views earlier on this year, and, you know, it's really sad to see that everything is now just going over. So I'm going to pick the last of my dahlias, and they really are, you know, quite ropey, but I'm determined to have them before the storm does. This one here is called Great Silence, and these flowers can't be more than maybe, I don't know, 5 centimetres across, maybe like 2 inches. and they were twice that size earlier on in the season. They're still super pretty, they just get so much smaller when they're not being cared for. This one here is Cornell Bronze, and it's definitely, I mean, I'd say it's less bronze now. It's more sort of pinky bronze, and I'm struggling to find any that are decent to cut. Nope, they're all pretty ropey. So that's the Cornell Bronze. I mean, I suppose it is still bronzy, it's just not as vibrant, definitely more muted at this time of year. So in amongst the jumble, in amongst this massive mess that were snapdragons, I've still got a couple of snapdragons. I'm definitely going to pick those today before the storm takes them. So if anybody would like an update on my Lisianthus, I did manage to grow Lisianthus this year, but they're pretty short, that's like 30 centimetres, and I mean, those may well flower. I'm going to leave them just in case they do. So this particular variety is Corelli Deep Pink. They don't look particularly pink to me, they look kind of pale. So I do have another one, couple here, but they're really not doing very much. I wasn't very successful. However, something that I am going to pick today is this gorgeous straw flower. It's such a beautiful deep rose colour, and I definitely want to dry that. So this beautiful red bush over here is the Prunus Kojonomai that we planted earlier on this year, and I mean, it's had quite a lot of leaf fall already. I can see the leaves on the ground, so this is what's left. We'd obviously missed, you know, the most vibrant period of that, but it's still looking, you know, like a nice colourful patch in the bed. And here I've got a lovely bunch of white statice. I have already hung some of that up to dry, and I don't think there's anything worth drying there at the moment. It's pretty much all gone over. They're so sad. There are a lot of snails living in these. Just bedding down for the winter, maybe. Got some snaps as well, lovely snaps. So when I'm cutting the straw flowers, I'm leaving anything that's gone over completely like this. So this isn't pink anymore because it's dead now and it's setting seed. So I want to collect the seeds, but also it's good for the insects to have something to nest in. You know, there's the odd one that I've left, but generally speaking, I'm leaving a few for the birds and the bees, but I may end up clearing this bed anyway, just to give my roses, which are down here, in amongst the salvia. These are my new roses, and they just need a bit of breathing space, I think, in the winter. So I've just realised that my mic isn't recording properly, and so I'm going to have to use my video mic, which possibly isn't the best, but please bear with me. I will get my mic sorted for the next video, but for today, hopefully the sound quality isn't too bad just using my video mic, and I really do apologise if I've been looking away from the camera whilst I've been talking. It's just one of those things that you can do when you're wearing a mic, but if that's not working, then unfortunately it doesn't work quite so well. Anyway, I will get on with today's video, but I just wanted to say sorry if the sound quality is terrible. So this area is making me really happy. This viburnum is an evergreen, and it's gone completely crazy and absolutely covered in flowers and flower buds. Excuse the plane. Here I've got some self-seeded viburnum bonariensis. There's a little bee here, so I shouldn't disturb him. And there's a gorgeous, I think these are called snowberry bushes, with gorgeous pink berries. And then over in the far corner over here is a lovely cornice with really bright red stems. So I think I've cut everything that I can cut. I've got a nice bucket load of flowers here. They really are the last flowers that are worth anything in the garden. So I'm going to put those in a vase and just enjoy them. And I've also got a massive bucket here of straw flowers, and I'm going to hang those up to dry. If you want to know how I dry my straw flowers, I'll put a little thing at the end and show you how to do that. But what I'm going to do now, before it gets too dark, because the clocks have changed and so we have less hours of daylight now. So I'm going to prune my lavender because I really want to get that done today, and it will be quite satisfying to just tidy up the edge of the border on the patio. So I'm going to get on with that. This is the patio bed here, and this is all the lavender around the edge, and you can see how it's all fallen over. All the seeds have dropped to the ground. They're making a right mess on the patio, and it edges the border all the way along here. So I am going to prune those back, not into deadwood, and I'll show you quickly how I do that. So to prune my lavender, I'm just going to use secateurs, but you could use snips or shears. That's absolutely fine. And the important thing about pruning lavender is not to cut into the old wood. So what we mean by old wood is this brown stuff here. So you want to make sure there's at least some green growth here that can sprout again when you're cutting back. So for instance, on this branch here, and I don't do everything that carefully, I'm going to cut to there because this has now left some growth for next year. In fact, it's got two options for where to grow from, and then I just take the rest of it and lop that off. But in fact, I don't do it individually one by one. What I do is I grab a handful and I just go in like this, just above where the green stuff is, where the fresh lavender growth is. And the best thing about pruning lavender is that it smells absolutely wonderful. So I've actually got an astrantia in here, but I'm just going to lop it off like this, and this is just going to tidy up the whole garden, hopefully. Well, not the whole garden, it's going to tidy up the patio area. And it really is as simple as that. As I said, I wouldn't do every branch individually. It's just not worth it. You just need to make sure that you're leaving some of the green stuff. Don't cut into the really old wood. I'm not sure if you can see that. So again, with this plant here, I'm not going to cut right the way down, but you do want to cut it quite hard, otherwise it just gets too leggy and you have to replace it far too often, and I don't want to be doing that. If you want to, you can try and create like a nice rounded shape, but you really don't have to. If you want to get it done quickly like I am, you can just tidy it up. So I am cutting it back quite hard on this edge here because I don't want next year for it to start shooting this way. I want all the shoots on the top to grow upwards, so I'm cutting it back quite hard here in the hope that it doesn't start falling over and ruining my patio next year. And even though the top doesn't really need pruning, I'm pruning it back so that it doesn't get leggy. So I'm just snipping off the top of everything, making sure everything's had a light prune. And then I'm just grabbing the bits that have fallen over and cutting them back quite hard. If you want to dry your straw flowers, you're going to need some twine or string or wire to tie them, because you want to tie them into bunches. It's much easier that way. And you'll need some snips or something so that you can cut off all the bits you don't want, and you know, deadhead the dead flowers, because there'll always be some dead flowers on each stem, pretty much always anyway. So let's get them out of the bucket. I didn't bother putting them in water because there's no need, I'm going to dry them. So they were in a bucket without water. So I'm actually going to put my gloves on for this because it's so much easier. Why are there so many seeds? If you ever grow Chinese forget-me-nots, the seeds will stick to everything. The seeds are so sticky, they're like Velcro. And there were some Chinese forget-me-nots in with the lavender. Can you hear the Velcro? It's so cool. They're literally just stuck to my gloves. So it doesn't matter if they're bent over, because I'll probably end up just using the head. But what I'm going to do is get my secateurs, and I'm just going to cut them at the bend, because it's just awkward to hang things on a bend. And then what I do is I strip all the flowers now, all the leaves. So what I do is I just strip all the leaves off, because if you leave the leaves on, they're just going to get all papery and crinkly, and then they'll drop off and make a big mess. So I prefer just to have the flower heads, even if I'm going to put them in a flower arrangement when they're dry. I'm literally just going to strip the leaves like that. You can just pull down on them with straw flowers. It's really easy. And then you're left with the little flower heads like that, and you just want to make like a little bunch. So I'm going to try and do the yellow ones all in one bunch. So if I've got a long straight stem, I'm going to try and keep that as one long straight stem, because that way I can use it in a nice tall flower arrangement when I want to, and I won't necessarily use it as you know, just use the flower head for decoration. So I take off all the little branches, I snip off any stems I don't want, and I just strip the leaves like this. So these ones where they've formed seeds, I don't keep those, because if they form seeds, they'll just kind of fall apart really easily. So that's one that I would definitely not keep. I'm going to put that in the compost. So you absolutely don't have to take all the leaves off if you don't want to. If you don't have time, you can just hang them up like this. That's absolutely fine, but I just find it a bit messy, and I quite like just sitting here of a late afternoon and doing this. This is a relaxing job for me. I quite like doing it. I find it quite therapeutic, and it's very calming, especially when the garden is so overwhelming. I like to have just a little task like this now. So I've got a lovely pink one here. This one's faded a bit, but it's got a nice orange center, and this one has turned to seed. So I'm going to take off the one that's turned to seed, because first of all, it's a bit grey and mucky. And secondly, I just don't want the seeds dropping everywhere, so I take that off. And you know, you don't have to be too fussy. If you are taking the leaves off, you can leave some on like that. That's absolutely fine. I mean, just do whatever makes you happy. It makes me happy to strip a stem, because then I know I don't have to deal with the mess later. I really love the deep purple ones. I think they're so beautiful. I like them all actually. So I tend to make two piles, and I have a pile for the really long ones, and then I have a pile for the shorter ones, because I just find it easier to hang them that way. I've got a few flowers together like this, I make a little bunch and I grab my twine and I just wrap it around a couple of times, and you do want to tie it quite tightly because as these branches, as the stems dry, they're going to desiccate, so the water will evaporate and then they'll shrink a bit, you know, as all things do when they're drying out. So make sure you tie it nice and tightly because otherwise everything will fall out when you hang them upside down as they start drying. So I tie a firm knot, a double knot there, and then I make a little loop with this bit here and tie a little knot there, like that. Oop. Like that, just any odd knot. So I've got like a little loop here, and then you can hang this on a hook. I tend to use coat hangers, so I've got some coat hangers with pegs that I use to hang these up in a dark room, and I can link those coat hangers below if I can find them on Amazon. So do take a look at those because I find those quite handy. But that's what I do. I hang these up for 3 to 4 weeks upside down, so make sure your flower heads are pointing downwards. That's what you want. I mean, they probably will anyway because they're the heaviest part, but hang them up for 3 to 4 weeks until they're completely dry, and then you can use them as you like. You could just put them in a vase like that, or, you know, make an arrangement with them, or you know, you can use the heads on, well, that's what I do quite often, is I'll use the heads on like wreaths, or as I'm decorating things for the festive season. But the pinks look really nice in the spring as well. So I love straw flowers. They're so handy to dry. I think they're wonderful. So this is the room in our house where we don't have any windows. It's like a storeroom, and you can see all my bulbs waiting to be planted. But these are the flowers that I hung up to dry before I went on holiday. So these are the straw flowers, and then you can see that I've got some statice and some grasses and the honesty. So these are the hangers that I use here, and they've just got like little pegs on them, and I hang them up from that, and they're just on like a temporary, you know, clothes horse. So what I do is I just take the little hook here and I put the knot inside the hook like that and hang them up like that. And they just stay in here till they're dry. So, you know, the little bunches get hung up too. And depending on how many I have to hang at any one particular time, I'll either alternate the hooks, so I might leave one empty, or I just use them all if I need to. But I like to sort of space them out if I can, so they've got some air circulating whilst they dry. So that's about it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll be posting a lot more over the coming weeks about how I'm tidying my garden up for the winter and the new perennials that I'm putting in, because I've got some wonderful perennials on their way to me, and also all my tulips and daffodils. So if you want to catch those videos, then do hit the subscribe button below and follow along on my journey. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.